If you've seen my other videos, you know that dogs have a pretty high level of anxiety tooting along most of the time. Then the peak in the anxiety comes. That could be a change in the household. It could be a new kitten. It could be a new neighbor next door. It could be a new car in the garage. As soon as the dog peaks anxiety, that starts the clock. Because dogs cope, they vent, they act out between 3 and 10 days after the peak. And it's not random. If your dog is a fourth day coper, the dog will cope on the fourth day for his entire life, not sometimes the third and sometimes the eighth. Now, the most common coping mechanism on the planet? Pottying where they shouldn't. Second most common? Destruction. That's the chewing, the digging, going into the trash, and stealing things. Third most common coping mechanism is your inappropriate noise making. Barking at the sun all day and the moon all night, barking at nothing, or whining or howling. Fourth most common, your escape problems. And on down the list you can go. Even the aggression problems are usually coping mechanisms that have nothing whatsoever to do with the moment the dog showed the aggression. It's on a delay day. Now, let's take, for example, you get a new kitten on a Saturday, and your dog is a fourth day coper. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the dog has to act out. And if that dog's coping mechanism is to chew things up and be destructive, you're going to have something chewed up on that Wednesday. The secret of getting problems solved is to give the dog an appropriate venue in which to cope with their anxieties. And that takes me right to obedience work. Demanding, exacting obedience is actually the venue in which the dog gets to cope. Now, you've got to work the dog prior to the coping day. Now that you know the dog has a coping day, start keeping track. A change occurs, he acts out, you know the number of days you have. You've got to work him in obedience prior to that coping day in order to avoid the dog's acting out by pottying where he shouldn't or whatever is his coping mechanism. I hope this gives you an understanding of how important obedience work is. Obedience, this is a foundation from which all problems are solved. When you know that the dog has stress and you know the dog has a coping day, you get out there and you work that dog in obedience prior to the coping day. The dog will act out within his obedience work. He will not do it correctly. You must persevere, get your successful completion, meaning he does it correctly, all the way around, heel and sit. I guarantee you, if he works correctly, you have avoided his acting out on his coping day. But if you do not get a successful completion, he still has anxiety and he still will act out on his coping day. And one last point. Coping mechanisms can become habitual. The dog housebreaks every day, several times a day. But before the smoke all clears and the dog gets totally cured of his coping mechanism, he will go back to only pottying in the house on the coping day. Keep track. Make notes. It'll help you.